All right, Megan and Helena, welcome to Get Shit Done.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
I am
So
so we've
excited to be here.
yes, thank you both. We just had like a whole kiki. We should have probably recorded it, but whatever. Just about our plans for the
Mhm.
weekend, having family leaving. It's that time of the summer. But I'm so excited for both of you to be here. And this is our new segment. So for our audience, you all know this. This is our founder confessions. A lot of the taboo stuff that many of us have experienced, but no one's really talking about out loud. And this is a kind of a heavy topic, but I'm grateful for both of these women who are courageous enough to say, you know what, I'm happy to talk about this out loud because let's normalize it so people don't feel alone in this space. But before we get into the heavy shit, I want to kind of anchor us into this space and talk about something that's made us smile this week. So, for both of you, what has been something that's grounded you and made you smile this week?
I'll go first. You know, you sent me this question yesterday, and so I had time to prepare. But the thing that really grounds me every day is like my pets.
That's on point. Yep. Love that.
And I have a very old dog who is wonderful, and he's probably in the twilight of his years, but he's still like waking up and making funny noises, and that just gives me like such joy.
Yes, it's the little things. I love that. Okay, Megan, what about you? What's bringing you
Uh,
joy?
well, it started with an Instagram post, as all good stories do. There was a woman who was reading a poem, and the poem was from the lens of her 80-year-old self. And she was like, I'm 80 years old, and I just woke up back in my 38-year-old body. Has anyone ever heard this particular one?
No.
No, that's cool
It's
though.
like I'm 80 years old and I've just woken up in my 38-year-old body. And she talks about all the things as a 38-year-old that she overlooked and like how she missed her mother's voice now that she's 80 and she's never able to talk to her mother again, and how she wished she'd snuggled her kids in the morning and held on to their little feet instead of trying to like rush them out the door. And I was bawling listening to this because I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. And so this morning, my 3-year-old and 6-year-old came in and jumped into my bed, and we all were like snuggling together. And I, instead of like, all right, let's get the train on the tracks, like let's get going because neither of them had school today. I was like, let's just snuggle and like be joyful. And I like was like being awkward and like smelling their hair and like just like soaking every cellular membrane of their body into my body. But like I was
Yes.
just like, oh, these little teeny cute chunks of love. And I felt so joyful just being in bed with my kids this morning.
Oh, that reminds me of what we were talking about before we started recording is a lot of us have we're getting older. The people we really love who have raised us are getting older, and it's just like taking time to just sit and be like, these moments, like nothing is promised. So that is wonderful. Even with your kids, it's like, wait, hold on. They're 3 and 6 now, but it's like they will be out of the house in like 2.5 seconds,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? I love this. I would say for me, I don't have the children's or the pets right now because pets are children. Definitely had one with my ex. He got custody, but that's okay. But I would say for me, it's been pickleball. And one
Nice.
of my friends laughed at me. He was like, aren't you too young for pickleball?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not." And I love it because we have this amazing community of women in Mexico City who've just rallied, and it's just that brings me so much joy. We're welcoming new members. Like I'm unintentionally, I think, starting a pickleball business on top of whatever I'm doing, but I'm like, this is fun, whatever. So that's been bringing me joy, pickleball, and I'll be playing tomorrow morning. And I love it. That's why I'm like, on Friday nights, my friends are like, let's go out, let's have drinks. And I'm like, I have to wake up at 8 a.m. for pickleball. So no, I'll see you on Saturday. Um, but I'm so grateful for both of you and glad we were able to express our joys. And I would like to give context too, so people understand who you are and then how we got into our story. So I would love for you both to just briefly tell us a little bit about like your entrepreneurial journey and how you got to where you are today. So then as we're going through these stories, people kind of understand, okay, the context in which we're working. And so, yeah, let's start with Helena on this.
All right. By the way, I'm in New York, so I might throw in some New York isms into our conversation
We
just for the
love it.
audience. uh, I I have run a few companies. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have run bootstrap companies. I've run VC-backed companies. I've started probably 5 or 6 companies at this point. I had a long fashion career with Chanel, Ferragamo, Zach Posen. And then I moved to Costa Rica, became a surfer, and along the way, met my husband, had a kid, and also started a swimmer line, an active swimmer line. So that dream that I had in 6th grade of being a fashion designer became true. And I started a swimwear line for active women, so you wouldn't be flashing your neighbors while you were, playing in the waves. Whether you're a surfer or a yogi or a cliff diver, or just someone playing with your kids or hanging out on the beach. And it was sexy bikinis that stay on. Miola sexy bikinis that stay on. And that's where one of the stories that I'm going to talk about later is going to come up. So I wanted to mention that. I had to shut that down in 2019. I then got hired to run a VC-backed company and was taking over for a founder who had broken her back running her company. And I had just had to shut down my dream after 9 or 10 years. So somewhere in there, I started getting the message that founders have to be able to do this better for ourselves and for others. We have to be more effective and we have to be better at our boundaries, our physical, emotional, mental health, and our energy, because people are literally like harming themselves unintentionally through grit and grind and pushing. And so I started coaching founders, and about 3 years ago, changed my focus to specifically fundraising for startups. I coach founders through fundraising for startups. And the reason I do that is because that's a massive pain point. And the market changed about 3 years ago and got from being really frothy and easy to very difficult. And so for the past 3 years, I have been focused on that, what the market bears, what valuation you should be searching, how to run a great process, how to get those warm connections, those warm intros, which are critical right now. And yeah, that's what I do. So I'm a fundraising expert. And I also am a podcast host of a couple different podcasts that we launched recently, all about being a founder and fundraising. So we have Inside the Round, which is where we talk to founders who have recently raised. And then we have Inside the Fund, where we talk to VCs who are actively investing. So you can either hear about how to raise money from people who've just done it, or you can listen to the funders and learn the tricks that they are recommending for people that they want to invest in.
Yes, I love this. And we'll link to both of those. And I mean, I feel like I'm talking to founders almost daily about how hard it is to fundraise right now. I mean, it's always been hard for women and people of color to raise, but this is a different beast where it's hard for everybody and even more so. And I
Yeah.
love when people who are fundraising experts, because I personally feel like if you have not done it yourself, it is really hard to call yourself an expert. It's like when I
Yeah.
used to get checks, my favorite people to get checks from investor wise were former founders themselves who could have some
Yeah.
fucking empathy about like, hey, don't waste my fucking time taking so long on a yes or no when you already know what that answer is, right? Shout out to Genevieve Thiers in Chicago, founder of Sitter City, who it took 3 months to get a freaking meeting with her. But when we got into the meeting, literally that day, she was like, cool, I'll wire the money tomorrow. And I'm like, thank
Amazing.
God, because she is a founder. But
Yeah.
yes, I'm happy you're here. Megan, how about you? Would love to hear some of your background as well.
Oh, it's hard to follow, but so where do I start? I did my MBA with a focus on sustainability. I was like, I want to understand the marriage between business and doing good for the world, and left that, was hired in a magazine, ran it for 5 months and got fired. And the night that I got fired, I had had the idea with a friend over pizza about like, why isn't there a magazine about impact driven or sustainable business? And then I went home and got fired. And I woke up the next day and was like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm supposed to launch a magazine about sustainable business. And told myself a story that I was completely unemployable because I'd just been fired. So I might as well just start my own business. And we did. We crowdfunded a print magazine called Conscious Company Magazine in the summer of 2014. And our first issue got picked up by every Whole Foods in the world. And
Wow.
January 1st, 2015. So like I all of a sudden was like, this cute little project, I'm just gonna see if I can do it, to like, holy shit, I'm a CEO of a national like business magazine. And it just took on a life of its own. Like increased distribution, Target, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, the whole thing. We got tons of subscribers. And I was CEO of this incredible media company where we had in-person events and podcasts, and I got paid to interview the coolest business leaders in the world. And this was our print magazine. Like here's Eileen Fisher, was on the
We
cover of our
love
third.
Eileen.
Just like we sold the company, we did a fundraising round, brought in like 750,000, all from impact aligned angel investors, which my cap table was insane. We had like 23 people on the cap table. Sold the company in 2017. I stayed on as CEO until 2020. When I resigned on February 1st, 2020, because I was so burnt out, I had nothing left in the tank and could barely get out of bed. And my last day was March 13th, 2020. March 17th, we were in global lockdown, and I had a 9-month-old son. And instead of launching my in-person events company for women, which was what I was going to do next, slash there's COVID, I was like a full-time mom, and that was not in my game plan. And I'm ADHD, entrepreneurially afflicted, and was miserable, just straight up miserable all through COVID, and just couldn't find my way, and also didn't know how to orient myself. Like, how am I worthy if I don't have extrinsic validation and all the achievement, and I'm not standing on stage and getting the ovations, and I'm not going to the events, and I'm not keynote speaking? Like, I'm just at home, and like, I don't even know who I am. So it was like a forced and very necessary period of pause where I was like, what do I do next? And how do I come out of this without destroying myself again and feeling worthy of like love, and that I'm a valuable human being in the absence of super high profile achievement. And so that I came out in 2022 after having another baby and was asking myself the question around what you were just talking about, like, as founders, is there a way to run businesses without destroying ourselves? And is there a way to run businesses that are highly profitable without destroying the people within them? Like the hustle culture, garbage, all that bullshit. And so I started studying that. So I do corporate workshops on that, women's leadership retreats, all those. I just worked with Coach and Kate Spade 2 weeks ago with their women's employee resource group. And so I do that. But the main thing that I did for the last 3 years was took that particular question of how do we do business in a good way without destroying people? Is there a way to do that? And looked at every single founder and CEO and successful business person I knew who seemed personally to be thriving or had created a business where employees were thriving and not burning out and stressed and overwhelmed and exhausted, and turned it into a book proposal, and it got picked up by Hachette Book Group, which I was not expecting, and wrote a book, and it comes out in 10 days on August
Oh
5th.
my God. On my birthday. What a
Yay!
blessing.
Okay, that
Come on,
means
Leo
something.
season.
So yeah, the book is called This Isn't Working, and it's all about the way in which contemporary business isn't working and what would a new playbook look like where human beings are healthy and happy. And the thesis was like, hey, if we do that, I think business performance will go up. And across the board, at every single one of these companies I studied, when the founders and leaders are thriving and the employees are thriving, turns out the business is thriving as well.
Who knew when the humans are doing
Yeah.
okay that run the business does better. Whoa.
Yeah.
Shocking.
So that's been my passion, and I'm like just I wonk out about it. I love, love, love this business stuff. I call myself a business anthropologist. I could just study business all day. It's like my favorite thing in the world.
Yes, same. I also love this through line is that all of us are founders. Well, I mean, once a founder, always a founder. So, like, not former founders. And all of us are now doing work rooted in we can't keep doing business the same way. Like,
Yeah.
literally, why I started Get Shit Done was just like, oh, yeah, like on paper, people are like, you're crushing it, you're killing it. And I'm just like, I'm dying inside. So, I'm grateful for both of you and the work that you're doing in this world. And I want to turn to this really hairy topic for why we're here today, because all of us have experienced fundraising, are now, helping founders fundraise, do business better. But something that is really taboo that has happened to so many women I know. And if you're a guy out there listening, if this has happened to you too, would love to know as well. But I feel like this topic happens a lot when we're discussing it behind closed doors, and it's kind of like the whisper network where I'm like, I don't want to whisper about these things, and particularly around sexual harassment when you're fundraising. And this was top of mind for me as we were, listening to the feedback we were getting from our audience to hear what other content would you like. And a lot of women basically raising their hand, women and men, saying, we want to hear about the really hairy, scary stuff because shit is hitting the fan metaphorically in the world right now, it feels. And people are like, we cannot keep turning a blind eye to things because this is what happens when we do. And I started thinking about what are some of the things that I've even experienced that, people weren't talking about. And I remember this one time when I was in Chicago, we were going through a fundraising round, and it was very common for when you're talking to angels or VCs, like you're out going, let's say to a bar or there's drinks or whatever. That's very common. And so there was one guy where he had a lot to drink. All of us had a lot to drink, but he had a significant amount. And at some point, we're all at the table, and it was so blatant. This is what was shocking to me. It was so blatant that he's sitting next to me, and literally, he just puts his hand down the back of my pants. And I was just like, what the fuck? And you always have this idea, like when you watch movies or like you hear from women and people are like, why didn't you scream? Why didn't you do whatever? And that was a moment where I was just like, oh, I completely get why, because it's the shock of it and the audacity that we're in front of a room full of people, that I remember just getting up, looking at him, and I didn't say anything. I just beelined it for the door. And I remember I just kept looking back, and there was something in my body that was like kind of went into flight mode. Like, I'm not safe right now. And just feeling like if he was that audacious to do that in front of a group of people, imagine if we were alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. And I remember like randomly telling that story in Chicago, maybe a few months later. And then I was with a group of women that were like, oh yeah, like I've been in fundraising rooms where the guy asked me what my bra size was, or, someone touching you or whatever it is, or trying to basically treat you like a hooker. And I'm here for sex work, do what you got to do. But it's like, oh, well, I will give you this money if you sleep with me. So it's insane because this happens so often, unfortunately. And I was like, you know what? This happened to me this month. This has happened to other women. We need to have a conversation about it. And so I'm curious around the experiences both of you've had, because all of us are serial entrepreneurs. We've had experience fundraising. And I'm curious about what was your experience like and what was going through your mind at the time. So I would love to start with Meghan and your experience when you were fundraising.
Sure. And I'll just tell one of the worst ones, but like I have a lot.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So sorry.
So this one was like when you're talking about like get to the quick yes, quick no. Like we really wanted to bring in impact investors, people who self-identified as impact investors and people who really cared about the positive impact the company was making and wouldn't expect super outsized returns because we were like a small media company. So I was doing it was like hand-to-hand combat, just one-on-one meetings excessively. And there was a family that I'd been courting for a while. I'd had 3 meetings with them and 2 meetings with their like investment advisor who was on their team. So we'd had 5 meetings to this date, and they were dangling like a 6-figure check in front of me. And I was like, okay, like working so hard. And like a 6-figure check when you're in a $750,000 round, I'm just like, it means
It's
a lot.
huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I was invited to a dinner that was like the whole thing was they were going to bring in 3 companies that were fundraising and the impact investor community, and we were all going to do this dinner together. And as we do the dinner, the companies were going to pitch during the dinner at some point. And I walk in and it's assigned seating, and I notice that I'm seated next to the best friend of the the dad of the family that I'm courting, and I'm like, oh, like perfect. I can like make a great impression on him, and maybe he can talk to the investor. Like I'm all stoked, and I sit down next to him, and he and I have met a handful of times through various events or whatnot. But this is the first time I've ever been one on one with him, and I sit down and I'm like getting my little investor pitch ready and I'm like all nervous. There's like probably 50 people in the room. And I sit down and he's like, what do you like to do for fun? Like, just tell me about you. And I'm like, I'm Colorado girl, like, snowboarding and hiking and blah, 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 and like being outdoors and yeah. And I was like, what do you like to do? And he looks at me and he like uses his fingers on his like stem of his wine glass and he goes, I like to fuck. Do you? And I was like, just
Wow.
like I don't like I didn't even I like you mentioned like it just you're like I can't is this actually happening? Did he just say that? And then I'm also like but like I can't make a scene. I also am about to pitch,
Oh, because then you're also the crazy woman. You're being emotional. Yeah.
right? Like you're overreacting. And so like I just deer in headlights freeze and then I don't say anything. I just look at him and then I'm just like it's like what are you gonna have for dinner? Like just like change the subject. I tried to, and then it's like 10 minutes later, I had to stand up in front of the entire room and pitch. And like the entire 10 minutes of that, he's just like making inappropriate comments about how much he likes to fuck and like bringing me into his network. And I'm just like, I don't even, and I got up and just bombed my pitch because I was so like I couldn't, my brain was just short circuiting. I don't know. I didn't even know what to do. Uh, so yeah, we can go into further on that one, but like that was one of the worst ones, and there's a lot, which is
Yeah.
like, and like I also found it. I was like, this is supposedly the impact investor community, like the do-gooder investor community, and this is the shit I'm getting here. Like,
Oh, the worst is when, first of all, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And the worst part is like when it's insidious, the most insidious. I was listening to this thing around like drug rehab facilities, people running them and sexual assault to the people that are going there to get treatment. And people targeting the most oppressed groups because it's like, oh, well, we're here to help them. And even in the impact community, it's like, no way, that person has donated billions of dollars. It's just like there's plenty of assholes who donate lots of money who are fucking predators
yeah,
too. And so that's so shitty. And I want to come back to this because like the fucked up thing is the fact that it's like how women hold in our bodies like in a way protecting, and like even when we don't think we're protecting, it's like why didn't I say something? I'm trying to protect myself, and also like I might come off this way and then like does this person I had to reckon with that with myself. But I do want to come back to like what was the impact after, and you already started on that with the pitch, but I'm curious, Helena, like what was your story and your experience fundraising, and then I would love for us to chat about yeah how it impacted us all after.
Well, I want to address like that not only is so over the line, like that's so gross, but it
So
also
gross.
fucked up your whole vibe. Like it fucked up
Mhm.
your business. That's infuriating.
It's like the cost.
But
The cost is not even just about,
yeah,
it's like in so many
like
different ways.
that's the line for me. Like when people are acting, I'm like, just don't fuck up with like don't mess up my relationship with my family. Don't fuck up my business or my sleep. Like those are the lines.
Don't fuck with my money. Literally.
Makes me so angry. So mine is a little bit less intense than that. But I had a swimmer line, right? I designed bikinis, sexy bikinis that stay on. And I was a surfer. And uh, so a lot of people like to see our marketing. They were drawn into the sphere, which is great. Something I tell people to do with their startups, like draw people to you, attract investors, but it also attracted a lot of weird behavior, right? And I remember going to the West Coast on a mini road trip to meet with investors, and I was meeting with the head of a shoe company out there who's super great. No shade for him, nothing wrong with him. But that was down in Orange County, and then I had to drive up to LA to meet with someone else. And on the way in between, I'd been contacted by someone who I knew of, who had property in the area that I was living in Costa Rica at the time. So he owned a mansion in Costa Rica, and he owned a McMansion on the coast of Orange County. I just say because there's less space, right? But it was a very nice house. And he was like, "Oh, you're going to be out here. Come by my house and we'll talk about me investing in your company." And it was on the way. So, I was doing a road trip. People are, there's some boundaries that have become softer, right? I think in the last few years. And I went to his house during the day and met with him. It felt creepy, but I was hoping for the check, right? And as I
Weren't
walked
we
in, he said,
all? Oh,
"Yeah, right. That's how they get you." And he's like, "I just had to see what a bikini designer looked like." And then we sat down and we had the meeting, and I got out of there and it was fine, but it was never a serious conversation. And I think that the message there is like, again, it wasn't as gross as what either of you have experienced, but my red flags were like, popping up. My warning signals were popping up. And I'm very lucky to have escaped that without him touching me or without any harm. But it was a waste of time. He would have never been an investor of mine. And I put myself in a dodgy situation, in a vulnerable situation. And I think that those are the things that we have to avoid as founders, even if we want that check.
yeah. And what you're touching on, I think, is so important. And you hear this a lot in sexual harassment cases in general. It's that even what you're saying around, and I'm sorry that even happened to you, because that's still, you don't need to be touched or have someone say something. It's like you shouldn't even be put in those circumstances. And I think the important thing around all of these stories that I want people to understand, it's like, it, like some people question, it's like, was that beyond the line? It's like when it feels beyond the fucking line, it's beyond the line. So even
Yeah.
like the circumstance of the person like setting it up where it's like, come to my place in the middle of the day, so many of our male counterparts have done that. And so
Hmm.
for us to even have to have the mindset of like, well, I can't do that because I have to protect myself. And it's just like, how about not be a creep? And so I would love to actually now talk through what was that impact for you on, and Megan, you already started hinting at like for you, the impact was you bombed your pitch after, but for how you all thought of, how you showed up in business or even in the fundraising environment after, how did that shape, how you showed up?
I mean, I'm happy to speak to it first. I mean, there was like the immediate impact, which I stood up and just bumbled my way through the pitch. My co-founder was in the room, like she didn't know that this had happened. And we hadn't, like, I usually was like kind of the lead on the pitching, and I didn't even like invite her to come up with me. I was just so frazzled. I just like, ugh, and like afterwards, she was frustrated with me because like I was so bad at this pitch. And it's like, so like that happened, and we walked away with $0 from that fundraising dinner. But there's a few elements here that you spoke to that I'm like, it's like this perfect storm for women because like I grew up as like a total people pleaser. You don't backtalk, you don't make people uncomfortable. Like my comfort is 100% not as valuable as someone else's comfort. And so there's that element. And then you're adding on the another layer of like the it's so hard to fundraise as a woman. So like if you get a line on a fund, like if someone's expressing interest, you're like, I don't want to fuck this up. Like I really need this money to make my business work. And so you don't want to piss people off, or like, especially in the investor community, it's like a tight-knit community. So like you don't want to be labeled as like the volatile emotional lady who had a breakdown at the pitch event because other people are going to hear about that. And you're trying to put it through this like persona that you're this like put together founder and that you can handle things and that you're like infallible, right? And so mine, like, there was all of that and like my like achievement addiction. I just let like we had another instance. It wasn't during fundraising, but we had a $300,000 proposal in front of a foundation to sponsor content for a year. And I was at a conference, and there was like one of the guys who was best friends with the president, and he came up, and I was like had my little magazine booth, and was like so excited that I was gonna see this guy and I was gonna make a good impression on him. And he's like, let's go grab a drink after this. And I was like, yeah, all my colleagues are going to this bar. And like same as like being invited to the house, he like showed up at my booth as it's closing. And I said, like, here's the address, I'll meet you there. And he's like, oh, well, I'll just hop in your car with you. And I was
How about not?
like, all right, like I just got I'm like literally
Yeah.
borrowing my friend's car. I have to clean up all my shit, like my booth. So I cleaned it all up, and he gets in my like friend's little Subaru, and he's like, and we're like getting, I'm like, can you give us directions to the place? He's like, yeah. And if you know San Francisco at all, we were in the Presidio, and he gets us right on the highway where we're like heading right to the Golden Gate Bridge. And I'm like, whoa. And like, there's no exit after that. Like, you have to go over the bridge at this point. And we're heading over the bridge. And I was like, no, 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 no. Like, my friends are at a bar in San Francisco. Like, we gotta go. And he's like, I'm just gonna take you to this little place, Cavallo Point, right up here before we meet up with them. And like, I just people pleaser, like, we have $300,000 on the line. Like going over, and I'm like talking, I'm like, I like my husband and I have been married for so long and I love my husband so much, and like husband, and like still like we have our drink, and I am like, all right, now I'm uncomfortable. We head back over the bridge, and he's like, I was like, I'm gonna drop my car off at the hotel. I'm gonna drop you off first. He's like, no, I'm gonna stay. I'll just walk with you from your hotel. And we get at the hotel, and he gets out and he tries to kiss me, and I'm like, and that was that it took that whole entire thing. At which point, when we were going over the Golden Gate Bridge, I was like, do I pull the emergency brake when we get off at this exit and like do like a tuck and roll out of the car because I'm so uncomfortable? But I just like I just stayed with it because the guy at the other investing thing had said the awkward comment, and I just stayed quiet. And I did stay quiet, and I did get the money from that family eventually, which like then I was wondering, like, had I said something to the guy who made the terrible comment, had I lost that money? And but then of course this guy tries to kiss me. I say no. I say I'm uncomfortable. I go into the hotel. I don't do anything after this. And then they deny the entire $300,000 grant application. And it's like what are you even supposed to do here? Um, like I had zero confidence in who I was, and I still prioritized other people's comfort over my own, and like did not listen to my intuition and red flags. And also acknowledging it's really, really hard when your business and money is on the line to like understand when to step in and say something, because you don't know if it's going to impact your entire business if you do. That was a lot.
No, thank you for sharing that. And that's terrifying. I literally was like, this is how true crime, like scary scenes happen, where it's like, what happened to the girl? Obviously, you're here, so thank God you're alive. Um,
That
but
thought, I was like, am I going to get murdered or am I going to get raped?
exactly, like
Or
you should
both.
never
Like,
have to be in that position ever. And as you were talking, the really sad part about all of us, all of our stories, is just like, when you start thinking about what could I have done differently, and then you start doubting yourself, like, and how you show up. Like, I think about, I have always been really friendly and outgoing since I was a kid. And I just remember I would hear people like, oh, especially guys like, oh, you're such a flirt or whatever. I'm like, this is me being friendly. Like, can a woman not be friendly without you thinking she wants to fuck you? And I remember after that, it makes me think about how people say women in business are bitches and they're aggressive or whatever. And it's like, because we are put in these circumstances where it's like, well, you try to just be kind or nice or whatever, and it threatens your life potentially, or it threatens your sense of self. And I just remembered, I'm like, I started showing up more cold to people because I'm like, I don't even want you to think and any inkling that I want to fuck you. And so it would, and sometimes there were some guys, and sorry for those guys, that they were, like the outcome of this happening was me being like, okay, whatever. And I'm like, you took me out of my own character to then feel like I have to protect myself because God forbid I shoot you a smile or I give you a ride home or I just go to your house and you think that, oh, we're going to go sleep together now. And it's just like, I didn't want, like, and I started even feeling hardened when I would, you would hear things around women crying. I will never forget this. And oh, I had to work through this. There was a woman who cried on Shark Tank. And I remember because she got really emotionally moved. And I just was like, oh, she's just making it harder for the rest of us. And I think back to that now, and it's like that was a direct correlation to that. Cause I'm just like, we have to show up as quote unquote hyper masculine men, be blocked off or whatever. We can't be super friendly or we can't show emotion because someone's going to get the wrong signal or we're weak or whatever. And I'm just like, that guy, like, I think back to this and thank God for therapy, but it's like, I think back to that now and I'm like, you made me step out of my fucking character because I felt like now I had to protect myself from all these people. And because if you're friendly, yeah, that means we're going to fuck. No, it doesn't. But Helena, I'm curious about like, how did that affect you and how you started showing up as well in your fundraising journey?
Well, I just want to say two things. Like, think about the amount of, it's like the pink tax, right? Like, think about the amount of energy and the amount of distraction that women founders have thinking about all these scenarios that could possibly happen when other people can just show up. Like, we got to think, are we going to die? Are we going to get raped? Are we going to get the money? Right? Or are we not going to get the money because we're going to be underestimated? It's kind of zany, right? And also to put this in context, I was able to close another investor who was completely above board, who I met. I was living in Costa Rica and New York at the time, and like he was the father of a client of mine who just loved what we did. And I went and met him at a surf shop and showed him my pitch deck and pitched him. And like, we had one more meeting virtually and he wired $250,000. So like, when you think about, oh, gee, you're stupid for going to this person's house. I don't know. Right. Like, I had closed somebody for $250,000, same kind of vibe, same kind of person just recently before that.
Right. And
Yeah.
why would you even think that, oh, I'm going to go, this is the context is it's supposed to be a business meeting. Why should we even think otherwise?
Yeah. So I think it's kind of crazy. How did it change how I showed up? I mean, I pay more attention to my instincts. I don't think I got more closed off, but I would never go to someone's house. I would say I would never go to someone's house now for investment. And I would advise that nobody else does that unless you have someone with you.
I was just going to say, unless you bring a buddy.
Party. Yeah.
Bring a buddy. And also it's just like, hopefully the buddy it could be another woman, but I'm like, no, I want to bring like my big, tall friend guy that looks like a linebacker, So
yeah.
I'm grateful for both of you for sharing these experiences, and it's not easy, but I want more people to know like the varying degrees, like you do not need to be touched or have someone say something to you for you to get the ick. Like the femtuition is very real and we need to listen to that. And it's sad when you're in these circumstances, especially when it's business and there's so much on the line. It's not just you are raising for a company and for the livelihoods of people. Like how shitty is it for us to be put in those circumstances? I'm curious now for like, if you think back of like, what you wish you had support wise in that moment, what would that have looked like for both of you?
I'll jump in here. A lot of what I do now is addressing what I wasn't able to do before, because while I raised $1.2 million for my company, it took me a long time and I did it badly and it was a big distraction. And so I think when I think about support, I would like to have someone, it would have been wonderful to have someone to be like, no, this is how you do it. And that doesn't include driving 2 hours to someone's house or looking a bluff to have a weird, random, uncomfortable meeting.
Facts.
If you have, like, what I work with people on is like setting it up so you have 20 to 40 meetings in 2 weeks. You don't have time to drive to Orange County and hang out overlooking the Pacific, right? Like you don't have time for that because you've got another 20 investors you're going to be meeting with. And so I think it's about uh, setting yourself up so that you don't have time for those kind of boondoggles that may or may not lead to money, but it shouldn't be all the stakes should not be on that one conversation.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is when you're in the fundraising process, like I'm on a board of a company right now that's fundraising, and I had to level set with them to be like, do not put your eggs in one basket. But when you are like, my runway is so low or I feel pinched, like when you put people in survival, and this is why these spaces can be insidious and these predators are so insidious because they understand the stakes for the founder. And sometimes we're not thinking rationally. We're like, I'm just fucking laser focused. And maybe some of the signals you would get otherwise, you're like, I have one job to do and this is it, right? So it is, it's the
Yeah, you're
worst.
worried. You're worried about
Yep,
your livelihood. You're worried about your business. You're worried about people who work for you. Like
absolutely.
like these are things that keep you up at night. And if you think you can close 300,000 to get you a few more months or a few more weeks, like you want to do that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Megan, what support do you wish you, like looking back now and you're like, this would have been helpful to have?
I mean, number one, my therapist.
Thank
I
God for
didn't,
therapy. Love
right?
it.
I didn't start working with my therapist until like middle of COVID when I was just like flat out on the floor. But I wish I had been in therapy and always talk to founders. And I'm like, that's like the first order of business is like get yourself a therapist or find a healing community, whatever you need to do. I also, there's an incredible entrepreneur, Erin Wade. She started Homeroom Restaurant in Oakland.
We love Erin. She's been on the podcast. Go listen to her
Yay.
episode.
So she and her team co-created a sexual harassment system for customers that were sexually harassing staff members. And one of the things that I really got from that, they had like a red, yellow, green or red, orange, yellow system. And the a yellow, if a server said I have a yellow at a table, it wasn't even an action or anything. It was like I just have a bad feeling and that it is okay when you have a bad feeling to say something, that you are not
Absolutely.
overreacting. And like, as soon as a server says, I have a yellow, the manager has to like say, like, what do you want me to do here? Do you want me to take over? Do you want someone else to take over? Like, whatever you need, you are just believed automatically that your experience of having a bad feeling is 100% valid and will help. Like that knowledge of like, that a bad feeling means something. I wish that I had had that confidence because I felt like in both of these instances, I was like waiting like this, I just have a bad feeling, so I can't justify saying something right now because it's just a bad feeling at this point. And then they escalate, and then they escalate, and then they escalate until they do something that like really makes
You're
you not
harmed.
want that. But like, I wish I had had that understanding, and I wish I had had just the self confidence and belief in my worth as a human being that my comfort is not inferior to someone else's, which is like you just my truth means is worthy and valuable. Like I wish I had had that knowledge and confidence.
Period. And so many of us don't. And it actually makes me think it's like you don't, even to Helena's story of being like, oh, it's not, as bad or as, being touched with someone saying it. It's like, no, it is. Sometimes it could just be a weird fucking feeling and that's enough. I love that system. And when I think of like the support that I wish I would have had, it actually makes me think of just the ecosystem and the system that is currently in place that allows for this type of behavior to exist. So even thinking about with me, like I think in Megan and our story, like we were in very public places. And it's like this person was that bold to make that comment or touch you or whatever. And it's just like, how can the ecosystem change? Like I wish someone would have been like, what the fuck, bro? Because it was literally, there was a room full of people. It was not like hidden. He didn't push me into a room or something. So I would love to hear from both of you, if you think about the ecosystem from investors to other founders to everyone a part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, what do we all need to take responsibility for? Because what I don't want to do is like this, well, what can women do to, no, 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 no. We're not putting ourselves in these situations to be like, you can harm me. If literally, if I'm not like, hey, I would like to have sex with you, then it's a no. It doesn't matter what signals you think I gave you, it's a no. So, Helena, I would love to start with you when you think about just the ecosystem, especially since you're doing so much work in fundraising.
Mm.
What do you think that this ecosystem has to take responsibility for?
Well, I think it's so tied into the patriarchy and believing women or
Isn't it
not believing
always?
women.
Hmm.
Yeah. So you've got to think, like, I wrote down, gee, I wish, people would talk about this, right? I wish we had I don't know if you all remember, there was maybe 10 years ago, there was like a bad behaving men in media list, and the person who created it actually got sued. But I wish that there was like a bad list that could actually be created that women founders or any founders would know about. But the bigger issue is, like, I wish that investors would take this seriously. They don't think it's a big deal. Like, tell me I'm wrong. Like, uh, all right.
They don't.
Anytime any woman comes forward and even says, I was date raped, or I was forced to do more than I thought I should, or this felt uncomfortable, most men are like, what? I mean, what are you talking about? That's not a big deal. That's normal.
You're overreacting.
Oh, that
Yeah.
he was just flirting. Wait,
Yeah.
what? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how can we change the ecosystem? Whew, I think be more public about this stuff.
That's why we're
But
here.
it's a long process, and we've got to find ways to, I don't want to say protect ourselves, but we got to find ways to exist within the current ecosystem and thrive and get money for our businesses within the current ecosystem while affecting change. Because the change isn't going to happen immediately, unfortunately. Continue a little bit more on that. So I'd like to just continue a little bit more on that. And I think that your gut instinct tells you so much. And every investor that I have on my cap tables in the past or in the future has been completely above board. So we have to pay attention to those red flags, because whether you get the money or not, you don't want to be in a relationship with this person for 10 years. So if they're creepy, just stop it,
Yep.
because you're entering into a partnership that some VCs have told me recently in our interviews, like, it's harder to get out of this relationship than it is a divorce.
Oh my God, yes.
So, so
It
like,
is.
do you want to be with creepy John? Sorry, John. I don't you just or whoever it is. Like, do you want to be with that person and have to see them and have to be beholden to them for 10 years? I don't think you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's about, while we're working to be more public and make change, there's also paying attention to our instincts.
Mhm.
Yeah. Megan, what about you? That's great advice.
Yeah. As you were just talking, I was like, I think the other list is also would be delightful, which is like vetted. Like, here's all the investors that are actually above board that female founders have worked with that were like, yup, like stamp of approval. They weren't the worst, and they like everything was fine. Also, I mean, I'm sure this is like very obvious, but like just helping women understand how to invest and like get more comfortable with the risk tolerance of angel investing. Like Pipeline Angels is like a fabulous resource of just
No,
like
they're
training
wonderful.
women on this, and like Corrales. There's Plum Alley. There's like incredible resources of female founders who are helping women understand how to deploy their wealth and invest in women. And like I had a decent amount of women on my cap table, and it was just such a different experience. Like you don't have to be like terrified of bodily harm or sexual harassment or all the things when you're walking into, and like not every woman I met who has money was nice, or like we didn't click or whatever, but like I had badass women on my cap table, and the more that we can get money into the hands of them and help them understand how to deploy it, um those were like the two things on my end. And oh, I'll also add asking fellow female founders for like investor introductions, because we've all like met all the assholes and know who to send you to. And like, you're not going to send another female founder to someone who's given you a creepy vibe. Is just like, I understand it's a limited resource. Like there's like, it feels hard to like share your abundance of investor connections and being like in a relational mindset of and not transactional, being in an abundance mindset and not scarcity of just like, I will introduce you to everyone who I know in my investor network. I introduce female founders all the time to everyone I know who's been an incredible investor. And sometimes they make big deals and those founders are so freaking stoked, but just getting more in the mindset of like, we are here, like, especially when you're on the other end of it, like, we are here to serve and help people navigate this journey from a place of abundance. And the more we can introduce people to the best people, the better.
Absolutely. And I think, from a systems lens, my thing is it all goes back to like, and systemic change takes a long time. Like Helena's point, it's patriarchy in general. But I'm just like, not for the women founders, but also the other investors are seeing this, like men and women, because women can be complicit too. If you see something, fucking say something. Even if you do need to whisper to, hey, girl, I just want you to know. Because sometimes people are like, they're afraid of retaliation and that shit is real. You don't have to be, there's some people that can afford to be loud and proud. And there's others that are like, no, can affect my livelihood. But literally, this is how predators stay in place because no one is saying anything because everyone's afraid. So what I would like to end on is essentially, we already started talking about it, but if there is a piece of advice and a resource you want to share with founders out there that are going through the fundraising process, have experienced this, would love for you all to share that. And I want to echo, what we've all kind of been talking about is it is so hard for women when we are in fundraising mode because a lot of times we are in survival mode. And when you are in survival mode, it is easier said than done of being like, I can just avoid that red flag. Or sometimes we are kind of talking ourselves into something because we're like looking at our bank account. And the one thing I would say is just listen to that voice so you're not harmed and understanding. I remember like even outside of fundraising, even in a business development deal last year, I was going to walk away from tens of thousands of dollars because I'm like, I don't feel honored here. And I had to call that thing out and they made it right. But I was just like, it took me years and 3 companies in to get to that point. And I think a lot of us, like we can share our stories, but we are not the specialists. And therapy, I think we've all talked about it. There's so many great therapists out there. And also for founders who are like, therapy can be so fucking expensive. I did find something, it's called the Open Path Collective, where it's like $30 to $70 per session. I know everyone's talking about BetterHelp out here in these streets. That's a wonderful, but it can be really expensive when you're strapped for cash. So I think you can listen to these stories, but trauma is real and you sometimes just need someone to help guide through and navigate what you've experienced. So yeah, I'm curious what for you, Helena and Meghan, what advice would you have? And if there's a resource you'd like to share, would love for you to plug that too.
Well, I think I would go back to what I said before, which is trust your instincts, put up boundaries, have rules. Um, it's all particular to you, right? And if you do choose, if you're interested in having some kind of relationship other than the monetary relationship with an investor, get the money first and then
Get the
do
money
whatever.
first, girl.
Get the money first.
Facts.
Like if you're into that, just make sure that wires in before anything else,
Period.
because yeah, you don't want to be left holding the bag. But I was gonna say is one of my former clients and I have started a company called Backable, and we're holding an event on August 4th where we talk about out of bounds questions during the fundraising process, but also women and other underestimated founders get all the risk questions and men get many fewer of those. I don't know how to say that correctly. And so there's science to support this, and we've never seen someone train on it. And so we're literally training people, whoever attends this 1 hour workshop, on how to answer those questions that are focused on your downside, to flip it to focus on the potential And that seems to be the key based on the science on getting, closing your round.
Mm.
Love that. It's amazing.
And you can find me on LinkedIn and all the info's there.
Oh, those are so good. I think I mentioned a few of mine, Corrales, Pipeline Angels, um, Plum Alley. I didn't mention Walk Star, which stands for Women of Color
We
Stars.
love them. Gail, hey girl.
Yeah. Gayla is like just doing the good, like she's doing incredible, incredible work over there. The Candide Fund with Morgan Simon, like extraordinary RSF social finance, are ones that I would plug. And then for entrepreneurs looking to like enhance just education and be in a good space where you can have access to capital and find good people, Rising Tide Capital under Alpha Demolash, just like top-notch organizations that are doing incredible, incredible work. And yeah, I don't think I have anything to add that hasn't been said already, but not all money is created equal, and there is no amount of money that is worthy of your self-respect or not being authentic to who you are. Like, it doesn't mean anything if you don't have that like feeling of comfort in yourself.
I love
Megan,
this.
Megan, where can we get your book? And when can we get your book?
Oh, you can get my
Yes.
book called This Isn't Working on August 5th. Pre-orders are now
The best
available.
day on earth.
Yes,
Yes.
it's Alex's birthday / book launch day. It's on all the major Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, all the things. And LinkedIn is a great place to find me, Megan French Dunbar, or just meganfrenchdunbar.com. You can find all the things. Thank you for the prompt.
Yes,
Look
we
at the
love
self-promotion.
this is women supporting women. Yes, get
Right?
paid, girl.
Like, say
And
the thing about the thing that's coming out.
we love it. And Helena, how can people get connected with the amazing work you're doing? I know you have your event August 4th, also Obama's birthday, and another great day, but not the best day on earth. But how can people get connected to the work you're doing?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to find me, and it's just Helena Fogarty.
Amazing. Well, thank you both for your time and energy today. This is not an easy topic to get through, and I'm grateful for your courage and your voices. And yes, I hope this is a step for more people to speak up and say something. And for those of you listening, we love you so much. And please protect yourself, protect each other, and keep getting shit done.